Princess Yona appears on top of a cliff watching as an passing by on the side. At that, a group of boys ask her to follow along the edge of the mountains, and she accepts, remembering that at that time she did not know how cold it was outside her castle. This princess shows us the kingdom of Kouka, where she grew up, and tells us that the king lived in Hiryu Castle. Without a male heir, nor a queen to give him one, he only had his 15-year-old daughter. On the anniversary of the king's father's passing, the king is giving a speech before everyone in town, when we see that Hack, one of the boys from the beginning, is like her security and is somewhat jealous when he learns that she is getting dolled up for someone else. At the end of the speech, we see Yona getting ready when she sees her father and apologizes for not being in the speech. She also shows herself as a conceited girl, which makes Hack notice when he enters the room. So Yona tries to hit him and asks her father to punish him. But the king refuses, saying that Hack is one of the 5 generals protecting the castle and a childhood friend of hers. Hack also stops her by telling her that Suwon, her 3 years older cousin, has already arrived at the castle. So Yona runs out to see him, and when she finds him, she realizes that he is no longer the boy she remembered. Even though he is going to stay there until Yona's 16th birthday in a week, Yona notices that he still treats her like a child. As Suwon leaves, Yona remembers her childhood with him and how he took care of her when her mother died. So he's her favorite person. The next morning, Yona goes to see her cousin, but not finding him, she looks for him around the castle until she meets the king, who shows her that Suwon is training with Hack on horses and with bows. When she finishes training, she wants to use a bow, but her father refuses. However, Suwon calls her and invites her to get on his horse and ride. Once up there, he tells her that he has several engagement proposals, and as she feels jealous, she tells him that she also has an engagement proposal with Hack, although Suwon only congratulates her. Once inside, the king explains to her that she must be betrothed, but they start to argue because she wants Suwon, and the king refuses, telling her that whoever marries her will be the next king. At that, we see a man with very long hair smiling and walking around the castle. She tells her father that Suwon is the son of her brother Yu Hong and therefore is of royal blood, as well as calling him a coward. But the king refuses to accept him as her husband, telling her that as a coward, he did not remarry after the insurgents had their mother's life, and that is the risk of being king, and he does not wish that for them. This is not understood by Yona, who we later see crying in the courtyard of the castle, while it is raining, when suddenly she sees a shadow that begins to her, although she manages to flee, entering the room where she meets Suwon. It is there where he confesses that he sees her almost as a woman, but refuses to feel anything for her. However, the fact of seeing her a little as a woman is enough to make her feel happy. While outside the room, we see that the person who was her was that mysterious man. Less than birthday arrives, and Suwon gives Yona a hair ornament and tells her that he likes her red hair, which she doesn't like. At that, they are interrupted by Hack, who tells Yona that the king is looking for her, but she ignores him and goes to her room. Hack tells Suwon that he senses something strange in the castle, and Suwon tells him to go and keep watch, because Yona told him the other day that someone was her, so Hack runs out to patrol. As night falls, we see Yona in her room thinking about Suwon, and she rushes out to see her father to convince him to approve a wedding with him. But when she gets to her room, she notices that there are no guards in the entire castle, and when she enters, she sees how Suwon is unburdening the king. Meanwhile, Hack is patrolling when he meets Min Su, who gives him something to drink, and they start talking about Yona and Suwon. Suddenly, we see that the soldiers of the kingdom have captured Yona, and when they are going to unleash her on behalf of the kingdom, they are attacked by Hack, who ends up unleashing them all and questions Suwon, who was watching in front of him. We see that when Suwon unveiled the king, Yona tells him that he is not like that, but he tells her that she doesn't know how he has lived for that day. While that was happening, Hack met some guards who were talking about Hack being their only concern, so he attacked them to get them to tell him what was going on. We go back to the king's room where Suwon tells Yona that he disowned the king because the king disowned his father, since he was the royal heir to the king's position, being the older brother. Therefore, he took revenge, and now he will be the king of Kouka. Yona doesn't want to believe this, and when Suwon asks her why she went into the king's room when she never did, Yona tells him that she is going to insist on marrying him, which surprises Suwon. At that moment, the doors open and Kishuk, the mysterious man, enters with a group of guards, and he tells Suwon to deviate Yona for having seen everything. At that moment, when Suwon is about to attack her, she runs and accidentally sets fire to one of the curtains of the room, which she takes advantage of to escape, although she is captured in the courtyard, and it is there where they are about to destroy her when Hack appears and defends her. Kishuk appoints Suwon as the new king of Kouka, and he tells Hack that he has unveiled the king and that Yona has seen it all. This angers Hack, who rushes to attack Suwon, and Suwon begins to fight him, while ordering Kishuk not to interfere, for Hack is known as the Thunder Beast of Kouka, and a blow from his weapon is like thunder on the one who comes. The battle continues, and Hack manages to slightly wound Suwon. When one of the guards holds Yona with his sword, Hack stops. At that, the guards surround him, and when Suwon tells him that he will attack whoever gets in his way, an arrow falls on the ground, distracting everyone, which Hak takes advantage of to grab the princess and run away. Suddenly, he meets Min-Soo, who had the arrow, and upon learning that the king is dead, he offers to help them escape, dressing up as the princess, telling them that he will distract the guards, and they will be able to leave. He does this, promising them that he will also escape. Although after Hak and Yona manage to get out of the castle, we see how Min-Soo is dispossessed by arrows in his back. Kishik tells Suwon that he will send guards to the mountains, but Suwon explains that Hak grew up there, and it will be difficult for them to find them. We move on to see Hak with Yona, who is in shock over everything that has happened and asks Hak not to which he tells her that wherever they go, they must live, and in that way, they will reciprocate the king's feelings. The next day, we see that at the castle, people are already asking what happened, and Kishik tells Suwon that indeed, they did not find them, so he asks him how to proceed. At that, we hear Yona, who tells us that when she turned 16, she lost everything, and suddenly we see the scene at the beginning, when she was on the cliff in front of the army, and suddenly her allies start attacking that while she orders the army to retreat and leave the kingdom of Kouka, swearing that peace will return to her kingdom. Suddenly, a soldier shoots an arrow at her, but one of her allies defends her with a shield and she shoots another arrow at him with a bow. As they continue to move forward, Yona stumbles from exhaustion and Hak tells her that they had better rest. As he watches her, he thinks that the princess has never known dirt or pain. We go back 3 years in the past and we see young Hak being reprimanded by General Mundok, who calls himself his grandfather since Hak was not at the royalty ceremony, although he wants nothing to do with it. At that, the king appears and asks him to be Yona's bodyguard, but Hak refuses and leaves, thinking that he doesn't like being in the castle, mainly because when he sees Yona, he loses his mind. When she suddenly meets Yona, who asks to hide her from Kang Ta-jun, Hair of the Fire tribe, who is courting her. He hides her and advises her to tell him that her heart belongs to Suwon, but she tells him that he doesn't belong to her. So Hak tells her that he is not interested in her love life, and she makes him angry by telling him that Suwon would not tell her that. Later in his grandfather's room, he notices that Hak is upset when Yona appears with lots of fruit, apologizing to him for being indecisive and telling him that she will solve his problems herself. Then we see her rejecting Kang Ta-jun, but he doesn't accept and starts to struggle with her, which the guards see, but being royalty, they can only warn the king. At that, Hak sees this and stops Kang. Plus, he pretends to be Yona's partner, saying that as kids they swore to be together, so she also pretends to say she loves him and hugs him. This is taken badly by Kang, who wants to draw his sword to attack him, but is stopped by the king, who grabs the sword, cutting himself and asking Kang not to attack. He is embarrassed and runs away. So the king thanks Hak and asks him again to be Yona's bodyguard, but this time he accepts. As the king leaves with Yona, Hak thinks that Yona is not a cowardly king, seeing his severed hand. We return to the present, where we see how Hak takes care of Yona, thinking that he will protect her wailing while watching her sleep. In that, we see Yona's dream where she recalls her childhood moments together with Suwon and Hak, as they played in the snow and how it made them sick, and after their parents visited them, including Hak's grandfather, they got better and promised to stay together. Suddenly, in the dream, she sees herself already 16 years old and sees her father dying in Suwon, and wakes up scared. But Hak goes to see her and apologizes, telling her that it was just for water. Then we see how Hak tries to feed her, but she doesn't want to eat anything, and this worries him because he doesn't know if they will get more food. After that, Yona is taking a shower in a lake when Hak finds Yona's hair ornament. When night falls, they enter a cave to rest, and Yona begins to look for that ornament, and not finding it, she goes out into the forest and reaches a snake nest, and when they are about to attack her, Hak appears and saves her, although he is bitten by one of these snakes. Returning to the cave, he gives her back her hair ornament, telling her that he doesn't know if he forgave Suwon or not, but it's the first time she moved by herself, and it was only because of that ornament, so he gives it back to her to keep her alive. At that, we see Suwon looking at the sky in the castle, while the guards tell him that they didn't find Hak, but he tells them to let them go, since outside the castle, they can't do anything, and besides, they must do something more important. The next day, Yona notices Hak's bandage, and although he tells her not to worry, that a snake bite wouldn't stop him, she tells him they better go down to a village for food and medicine. But Hak explains to him that even if the villagers do not recognize them, the villages should be with many guards who will recognize them, therefore they should go to the capital Fuga, their hometown. At that, they arrive at the entrance of the city and Hak wakes up the guards, who were asleep, and when they recognize him, everyone in the city comes to greet him. So he realizes that they still do not know what happened in the kingdom and introduces Yona as a courtesan practitioner. They all see her and begin to ask her many questions, so she ends up to which Hak decides to take her inside the city and orders them to give her a bed and food. Also, she asked about her grandfather, but one of the guards tells her that he was summoned to the castle, which is strange, because he is no longer a general, asking Hak if he has been fired. We move on to the castle, and here we see the generals of the 5 clans gathered in a room of the castle, talking about the supposed death of the king and that the suspect of Hak, who took the princess. But the old man Mundok does not believe in that story. At that moment, Suwon appears and confirms that the king and Hak and Yona are missing. So he asks for total discretion, and then if they find them, they should tell him immediately. In addition, the general of the Fire Clan proposes to appoint a king, so that the kingdom does not fall into the hands of invaders and everyone accepts Suwon as king, except the old man, who tells them that Hak is the general and has no power to accept that. So Suwon tells him that if he does not accept, he will believe that the Wind Clan is revealing itself and that will not be good for his capital Fuga. So he hopes that in 3 days when the coronation is, he will see him there, to which the elder Mundok tells him that it is sad that he used to see him as a grandson and withdraws. After that, we see the general of the Fire Clan with Suwon, and it is seen that they are planning everything. Suwon tells him that Hak will not be able to say anything so as not to endanger Yona, and also orders him to prepare for a possible rebellion by the Wind Clan, while he sees the old man Mundok leaving the castle to his city. Meanwhile, in the city, Yona awakens and is attended to by a boy who introduces himself as Taiyin, Hak's brother, who gives her food, and before she can answer his and the guard's questions, Hak interrupts and secretly speaks to her, telling her that she will now be called Rina, an apprentice courtesan. Yona notices how cheerful everyone is and how it is the place where Hak grew up. When she goes out to the street, she meets a lady who tells her that she knows that she was thrown out of the castle for not knowing how to wash or cook, so she gives her a lot of clothes and tells her that she will teach her and that she should go and wash them. Hak helps her with the clothes and takes her to the bank of the river, where she will start washing, but immediately they notice that the river is dry. In an instant, everyone in the village starts to panic because of the dry river, but Hak tells them that he has already sent Hende to find out what is happening. At that moment, Mundok arrives in the city, who calms down when he sees Yona with Hak there, and also tells them about Suwon's plan, and that the dry river is a consequence of his rejection for Suwon's coronation. Suddenly, Hende arrives very wounded and explains that the Fire Clan made dams to stop the river, and he attacked them, but they were stronger and wounded him. The whole city wants to go to fight, but Hak calms them down and orders them to do nothing, instead to buy water from the merchants while everything is being solved. At that, we see a soldier of the Fire Clan next to Kang, watching the prey, and although the soldier wants to follow the orders of Sujin, as general, Kang wants to attack that clan more, even with a grudge of having lost Yona. Later, we see that Taeyeon wants to give water to Yona, and tells her that dinner is ready when suddenly, Yona... At that moment, Mundok enters with several people and explains that Taeyeon has a disease that causes paralysis in her lungs, and she only has to take her medicine to be well. But at that moment, another person enters and tells them that the merchants are being attacked by the Fire Clan and they cannot reach the city with water or medicine. Hak calms them down, and Hende, still injured, offers to go to the forest to look for a doctor to buy Taeyeon's medicine. At that, Hak orders everyone to calm down and not to fight. Since the Fire Clan is stronger, they will do something and solve everything. That night, Hak tells Yona, while they are taking care of Taeyeon, that she can stay in the village and live quietly there. He then goes to Mundok and tells him that he will leave and that he must accept the coronation to leave the Wind Clan alone, and also asks him to take care of Yona and be part of the clan. His grandfather tearfully accepts, since he is the chief of his village, these being the last orders of the general, son Hak. That night, Hak enters the city's blacksmith shop and wakes up the owner, while looking for a small sword and a bow, telling him that he will be gone for a while and paying him everything he owes, leaving the owner confused. Then we see that Hende arrives with medicine for Taeyeon and is instantly healed, although Hende is left very exhausted. At that, the other guard tells them that he will go to see the wounded and take care of Hende. So Yona leaves the house to follow him and meets the lady who gave her the clothes to wash. Together, they enter to see the wounded, and already inside she is in shock, realizing that the Fire Clan will not stop until Suwon is king. In that, she bumps into Hende, who tries to cheer her up together with the other guard, and they tell her that Chief Ak and Mundok will take care of her family, because everyone there, including her, is family, so she decides not to involve them. The next day, while looking for Hak, he meets Taeyeon, who thanks him for his help and tells him that he is leaving. So the latter starts crying, and when he leaves, he says that he can't protect Rita, as Hak asked him to do. Already at the exit of the village, Hak is seen with the guard, to whom the latter tells him that he will be the next general and that he must take care of Rina. But this guard tells him that he does not want that because taking care of a princess is a heavy burden, implying that he knew about Yona. Suddenly, Yona appears and asks Hak to accompany her, but as he refuses, she insists, to the point of shouting at him to surrender to her, so he accepts. At that moment, Mundok appears, dismisses them, and tells Yona that she will always have the support of the Wind Clan. We move on to see Kang, who is sad because his father scolded him when the soldier from before finds him and tells him that they saw Yona with Hak going to the northern mountains, so the latter asks to gather the soldiers. Arriving in the mountains, Hak and Yona look for a monk about whom Mundok told them. This monk knows the future of the kingdom, and it is said that he used to live in the castle, but was oppressed and left far from all the towns. At that moment, Hak feels on the ground that 50 men are coming for them, and after running for a while with Yona, they meet all of them, who point their bows at them. All the soldiers start attacking them, but Hak fights back and defeats them. Suddenly, Kang appears and starts talking to them, but they ignore him, and in the end, Hak tells him that he is no longer a general and that he does not involve the Wind Clan. So they begin to fight, and Hak with Yona runs to flee, but she stumbles and a soldier takes advantage of this to throw a poisoned arrow, which receives Hak, but does not flinch and continues to flee with Yona. After that, they hide and Hak asks Yona to stay there while he goes to fight, but she hears about the poisoned arrow and that they will throw another one at him to unburden him. At that, she begins to question that she always expects Hak to take care of her and runs off, pushing the archer and coming face to face with Kang. The latter tries to persuade her, telling her that together they can overthrow Suwon, but she doesn't believe him and he is seen with an intense look while Hak is fighting several soldiers at once. Yona's look scares Kang while Hak claims her for coming out of her hiding place as she continues to fight, but she does not stop looking angrily at Kang. At that, the fight continues, and as the poison in Hak's wound begins to take effect, one of the soldiers manages to wound him with his sword and he falls down a cliff, only holding onto one hand. This is seen by Yona, who is frightened by Hak and wants to run to help him. However, she is stopped by Kang, who grabs her by the hair and tells her that he will take her to the castle, but she sees Kang's sword and takes it from him, with which he cuts her hair, scaring him and causing him to fall to the ground. Yona takes advantage of this and runs to Hak's aid, but as he is heavier than she is, they both end up down the cliff just as Kang is reaching to grab Yona. Seeing this, Kang goes into a crisis and wants to jump, but is stopped by his soldiers, who tell him that no one survives that fall. As the night comes, we see Kishuk with Suwon, telling him that Kang has arrived without an appointment and wants to talk to him immediately. Upon seeing him, he hands him Yona's lock of hair, telling him that he has devoured her and demanding that he punish him. But Suwon just tells him to rest that night at the castle and be there for the coronation the next day and leaves. Then we see Suwon sad, remembering his childhood with Yona and Hak. On the other hand, that night, a young man was walking through the forest and found Hak and Yona out on the bank of the river, thinking that they were homeless. We went to see Suwon, who was taking a shower for the coronation, when he was interrupted by Kishuk, telling him that Mundok had arrived with the new general of the Wind Clan. At that, dawn breaks and Suwon heads to the Red Dragon Palace docks where he is to be crowned and recalls a conversation with Hak, where he asked him to become king to be his right-hand man and protect him and Yona. So he enters the palace, thinking that now he will be king, but he will not have his right hand, nor the woman who loved him. Once crowned, all the generals of the clans begin to give him their devotion, while he is suspicious of each one. In the end, when Mundok speaks, he only notes his disapproval, which Suwon accepts, and tells the people that he will fight with anyone to get Kouka back to the kingdom it once was, causing everyone to begin to acclaim him, except those of the Wind Clan. We go to see Yona, who wakes up because the young man is giving her orange juice. At that, he introduces himself as Yun, and she worriedly asks about Hak, to which Yun shows her what he looks like. Hak is bandaged and Yun tells him that he was saved by luck. But just when Yona goes to ask him if he is a doctor, Iksu appears, who introduces himself as Yun's guardian, and tells Yona that the gods told him who she was in her whole journey. So she thinks Iksu is the monk Mundok was talking about. He claims that his job is to be the spokesman of the gods, but Yun tells him that he was thrown out of the castle because he was saying that he listens to the voices of the gods, and this surprises Yona, who asks why. So Yun asks him how it is possible does not know if she comes from the castle. The day goes by normally when Hak starts to have a fever, and this frightens Yona, who demands Yun to cure him, but Yun gets angry and tells her that he's not a doctor and has not even thanked him for saving her. But Iksu interrupts them and tells Yona to go for a walk. Plus, he talks to Yun, telling her that she should be nicer because she's fighting in her way. While walking, Yona asks Iksu how he ended up there, and he tells her that the current took him there and that he likes it because even flowers grow there, seeing the flower near the rocks. At night, we see that Yona talks to Yun and asks him to tell her what happened with the monks and that she wants to stop being ignorant. Yun tells her that he is not a monk, he only takes care of Iksu, but that before, the monks had more influence than the kings because they were the servants of the gods. At that time, King Junam was winning the Kouka kingdom and expanding his territory together with Prince Yuhong, who realized that the power of the monk in the castle could make them reject the king, so he banished Iksu. Yona thanks him for telling him and tells him to teach him more later. The next morning, she wakes up and notices that Hak is not lying down, so she runs out to look for him. At that moment, she stumbles and Hak appears, who had gone to look for his spear. Yona complains to him and starts to cry, so Hak approaches her saying that he can't stand to see her cry, and when he's about to kiss her, she rubs him with her forehead. She explains that she thought she would measure his temperature, which she does, demonstrating her innocence. Although Hak notices Yona's haircut and Yona tells him that it's okay, she doesn't like it after all. Hak realizes that even though she doesn't need it, she still wears the hairpin that Suwon gave her. That night, while they were sleeping, something happened to Iksu. The next morning, Yona tells Hak everything, and Hak thanks Yun for his care, calling him a monk while grabbing his food, but Hak stops him and tells him that he is not a monk. Then she finds Iksu in front of a cold, crying, and he tells her that he dreamed about her and her future. But she tells him that she wants to live and will not let anything happen to her or Hak. So when they all arrive, Iksu tells them what the gods want him to tell her and mentions the red dragon and the 4 dragons of the legend of how Kouka was founded. In narrating this legend, we are told of a red dragon that became a man and formed the kingdom of Kouka. When men were going to destroy it, 4 dragons appeared to defend it, but he refused, and the dragons gave their to 4 people, with which they obtained skills such as claws that cut everything, eyes that see from afar, legs that jump very high, and indestructible body, with which they managed to finish the battles and found the kingdom. But when the king went on the rampage, the 4 warriors left and the clans continued to advance, forming into the clans of today. Yona asks Iksu what this has to do with his future. So he tells her that he needs to protect himself, and if he continues like this, Hak will be devastated, although he denies it. So he needs allies, telling her to look for the 4. Hak tells him that they do not exist, but Iksu corrects him and tells him that they do exist, and that if he finds them, they will join his cause, since if he has gotten there, it was not by miracle, but rather it was because his destiny wanted it so. That night, Yona is walking and thinks that she wants to be someone strong while holding her hair ornament. At that, Hak appears and she tells him that she wants to find those 4 and also asks him to teach her to use the sword and the bow to be able to defend him, so Hak accepts. At that moment, Iksu appears, who is happy to know that he has made up his mind, and asks them for a favor. Suddenly, we see Yun finishing sewing a red suit. That night, while they were sleeping, Yona remembers the favor Iksu asked of them, and that was to take Yun with them on their journey. The next morning, we see that Yun has made an outfit for Yona, which she wears and likes. At that moment, she picks up an axe wanting to even out her hair, so Yun starts cutting her hair with a razor until she is done. While he was doing so, the latter charges him for medicine, clothes, and cutting, but as Yona has no money, he tells Yun to charge Mundok. Whereupon Yun is surprised, as Mundok was a warrior as strong as Prince Yuham, although to Yona, Mundok is an old man who cares for and loves children. After that, Yun tells her that he's a genius who memorizes books with just 1 reading, although he hasn't read many, showing her a medical book that Iksu gave him. This makes her think, and then it is seen that she goes to look for Iksu to tell him that she can't take Yun away if he doesn't want to. But Yun just happens to overhear this, so he then confronts Iksu, and Iksu asks him to accompany and help the princess. Later, Yun is seen in front of a bonfire, about to throw away his medicine book, when he stops and Hak appears with fish, and while he is cooking them in the bonfire, Yun notices that Hak is already moving normally, so Hak tells him that he can't because he must take care of Yona. Yun tells him that it is something silly, but Hak makes him see that he does the same with Iksu, so the latter leaves and starts thinking about it while looking at his book at the edge of a waterfall. In that, he remembers how 7 years ago in the village of Tosca, within the Fire Clan, he met Iksu, whom he wanted to, but not finding anything, he ended up letting him sleep in his house. The next day, Iksu gives him a potato, which he sold in exchange for his shoes, and so that he can travel, he makes himself some straw sandals and teaches Yun how to make some, which he does better. Iksu goes on a trip, and a long time passes, where Yun starts to sell the straw sandals and thus has money to eat, but missing Iksu, who one day comes back very gummed up and tells Yun that he was robbed of the books and things he was going to give him, along with his gold. So now he is going on a trip to a faraway place, and Yun asks him to accompany him, remembering in this way everything they spent together. We come back to reality and see that Iksu approaches Yun to tell him that he should travel like he always wanted to, but Yun notices the latter's sandals are all broken and makes him new ones, which Iksu thanks and celebrates, showing that he can take care of himself because before he falls, he keeps his balance again. In the end, they both cry, saying that it is not goodbye and in the future, they will see each other again. We go to Yun's house where Yona and Hak are ready and decide to take Yun with them, so that we see how they say goodbye to Iksu, and Yun is prepared for anything that may happen on the trip. As they leave, Yun looks hopeful as he orders the boys to go down a path he knows. We see that Kishuk finds Suwon in his office reading and tells him that indeed taxes were dealt in the kingdom, and that he already fired the one in charge of this. Whereupon Suwon tells him that although the previous king was good, it brings greed and avarice from others. Suddenly, Kishuk sees a book that Suwon is reading and tells him that it is forbidden. So he tells him that it is the book about the legend of the dragons. But it doesn't matter because fantasies won't fix the kingdom. We move on to see the boys who are traveling as merchants hiding Yona in a bag, although she gets angry because Hak takes advantage and starts touching her and gumming her in the bag. But Yun calms them down, telling them that they should not attract attention even more because they have to cross a village and the capital of the Fire Clan. Since, according to Iksu, passing it up some mountains, there's one of the because the others stop moving. In that, they pass by a person and Yona does not hide, but this person does not recognize them and goes away. So she tells Hak that she has not yet healed completely and should not carry her all the trip. She wants to see the kingdom for her own eyes. Yona begins to see a mill, and out of curiosity, she asks what it is, as well as a field of rice and corn. So they explain to her that this is where the food she received at the castle came from, remembering the lunches with her father. When they reach the town, they feel a little safer because they see no soldiers, so Hack leaves them in a restaurant while he goes to an armory, since his were lost when he fell from the cliff. There he gets a bow and sees a small sword for Yona, but refuses to buy it for her. Meanwhile, at the restaurant, the guys hear about Suwon's coronation, and this makes Yona nervous, so she runs out of the restaurant. When Yun manages to catch up with her, he tells her that she shouldn't stand out so much, and right there they see some Fire Clan guards, so they hide in an alley, but at that, someone grabs Yona from behind, surprising them. When Yun turns around, he realizes that it is Hack, who tells them that they must leave that town. When they leave, he apologizes for leaving them alone, and they begin their journey. They spend day and night like this, until one day Yona asks him to teach her how to use not to survive, but just to create an escape. So Hack accepts and gives him his bow, telling him that for now, he will only learn that and not sword, taking into account that his father did not want him to use and that now he disobeys the orders of his king. He begins to practice during the trip, and Yona even takes advantage of the nights to practice to the point of damaging her hands. But one day, while she's having lunch with Yun tells her that she must be aware that she will have to survive someone because her enemies will not stop for anything. Then, as they continue on their way, she tries to hit Baby Boar, but hesitates and misses the This is seen by Hack, who tells Yun to go ahead and starts testing Yona, asking her to him. But as Yona misses the he tells her to imagine she is Suwon, and she's cutting Hack's cheek. Yona starts to cry and tells him that she will go out of her way to protect him, but Hack tells her that she should not protect him since he is her tool. While they were advancing, everything became cloudy and Yona found Yun's things lying on the floor. At that moment, some voices started to tell them to move away from there, and Hack with one movement removed all the fog, showing several archers who were the guardians of the White Dragon. They recognize Yona, calling her the red-haired girl, and she tells them that they are looking for the that the monk told them about. So these guardians tell them that they will show them the city of Hakuryu. We went on to see that city, where we saw the White Dragon looking out of a window. Suddenly, we see Yun locked in a cage, wondering if the others were captured, when he sees them having a tour with a village elder. He calls out to them, and the old man apologizes, releasing him. At that, Hack tells her that the guardians changed their ways once they saw Yona's hair color. Suddenly, they explain that they are the offspring of the White Dragon, and he has lived in that village for many years, so they take care of and protect that there are no intruders. But also, they all have a fascination for red hair, since the master to whom the White Dragon served had that color of hair. In that, we see the White Dragon in his room telling a priestess that he wishes to serve his master, although she tells him that it is not necessary in this era and that maybe he will serve him in the next one. Besides, for his 20 years, he should already have several wives, but he has none. Then he hears the noise in the city, and as the priestess tells him that there are some curious intruders, he goes out of his room, them off. Just at that moment, Yona was with Hack, telling him that it is interesting that when a new bearer of the White Dragon's claw is born, the previous one loses its power, and he takes the sword from Hack, telling him that if the White Dragon refuses to help them, he must teach him how to use it. Suddenly, the White Dragon calls Yona to attack her, but notices her hair and recognizes who she is, and because of that, his blood begins to boil, and as he is passed out, he remembers his father's words, telling him that his king will appear and require his strength, and when that happens, he will feel it in his blood and see a light come out of it. When he wakes up, he notices that Yona is his master, and although she denies it, she still asks him to lend her his power. So the dragon accepts and tells the clan that you will go with Yona. But just at that moment, the old woman appears, telling them that they must have a welcome banquet for the arrival of their king. While they are preparing the banquet, the dragon is in his room asking his father to protect him on his journey when Hack appears, who enters and begins to search inside the room for something useful for the journey. Although the dragon interrupts him, giving him a lot of money, it's for him to go away and leave the princess in his care. Then we see Hack with the dragon. They return to the village, and we notice that they are both angry with each other and don't get along, but Yona calms the dragon, telling him that Hack is her friend and that he has to protect her and him. The dragon takes this to mean that Hack is weak and agrees to protect them. Night falls and they have a banquet where they all talk and have fun. The next day they say goodbye, and the whole village comes to say goodbye to the dragon, so that at the end the old woman tells the dragon to fulfill his mission and then return home. While they are on their way to the next dragon, they realize that they don't know where it is, so the White Dragon tells them that it can sense the location of the other dragons, and so they set off in search of the next one. But first, Yona asks the White Dragon for his name, since everyone calls him a White Dragon, and he answers that she can call him Kija. In a moment of rest, Kija is in front of a stream thinking that he will protect his king, as he promised in his village, when Hack arrives and starts to bother him, so they both start to argue when they are beaten by Yona. She tells them to get along well and not to fight. At that moment, Yen arrives and they start their journey again, although the two remain angry with each other. While they are traveling, Kija tells them that he feels closer to the blue dragon and shows them where to go, trusting to know the world thanks to his clan, but automatically falls into a pit of insects, which frightens him. And when he gets out, Hack makes fun of him, until they feel the presence of some men approaching, and as they think they are the soldiers of the Fire Clan, they send Yona and Yun to hide. Suddenly, those men arrive and Hack and Kija are surprised to find out that they are bandits, who start attacking them, and Hack and Kija start fighting against them, defeating them. In one of those, Yun helps Yona arrow at one of the bandits, managing to wound him. After finishing, Kija starts to compete with Hack on who defeated more bandits, but suddenly the latter falls to the ground, exhausted with severe pain from his arm, while Hack, because his wound ends up opening up, which makes Kija see how strong Hack is. After that, Yun tells them that they should look for a place to spend the night, and since Hack is heavy, Kija carries him, telling them that the dragon's arm is 10 times stronger than a normal man's arm. As they leave, Kija thinks that he wants to protect and help Yona in everything. That night, they are camping, while Yun feeds them, but Kija complains about the food, although Yona tells her that before Yun, the food was worse. Right there, Hack wakes up, who denies having wounds, and when the princess is about to feed him, she's interrupted by Kija, who offers to feed Hack. These two begin to argue but are interrupted by Yun, who asks Kija about the blue dragon, and he points out a path in the direction of the Fire Clan, saying that he feels it there. He also tells them that he knew the blue dragon was with his clan in the city of the Earth Tribe, but they suddenly disappeared. So Yum assumes they have moved. So they decide to rest there and continue the next day, although Kija is surprised that they sleep on the floor. The next day, he is emaciated from the bad night, and Yun asks them not to arouse suspicion, as they will look for the blue dragon near the Fire Clan. In that, they reach an area where Kija does not feel it, and before going for others, Hack stops them, telling them that those areas have already been taken by the Fire Clan, and it is dangerous to go, so they go to other areas, although in all Kija says he does not feel the blue dragon. As night falls, he tells them that he is sorry for the mountains, so Yun thinks that he has passed the border. At that, Kija notices that Yona is rubbing her leg, thinking that she is hurt, but she tells them that she is just tired, which Yun gives her a drink for the tiredness and tells her that he will bandage it so that she can recover. After lying down to sleep, Kija does not manage to rest, thinking that he must make an effort to find the blue dragon, since everyone is more useful than him. At that, we see that he falls asleep, and in the middle of the night, he is awakened by a noise and notices Yona shooting her arrows, but before he says anything, he is silenced by Hack, who tells him that she practices every night. Hack tells him what the princess has been through and why she tries so hard not to be weak, which inspires Kija, and the next day, he sets out to find the blue dragon. And there, Yun tells them that he thinks he knows where that dragon lives, showing them a place in the mountains right on the border. So they head there. When they arrive, they find a small stone palace, and Yun tells them that Ike Su told him about a group of people who took refuge in the mountains to escape the war. Also, Kija tells them that inside is the blue dragon. As they enter, they are surrounded by people wearing masks. At that moment, a man with a cane appears and calls them guests. Suddenly, Kija asks about the blue dragon, but these people don't know anything, and although they insist, the old man with the cane answers that they don't know anyone like that and they have been mistaken. That is why Yona apologizes but asks to be allowed to stay and rest to continue their journey. So the old man takes them to a room, while he tells them that people with masks are inhabitants without marital ties. When they reach the room, he tells them that the place is a labyrinth and that they should be careful, because he will not be responsible if anything happens to them. Once in the room, Kija tells them that he feels the presence of the blue dragon, and then Yun tells them that they should go out to investigate and that he will draw a map so they won't get lost. But soon they reach a closed road and must return because they begin to feel watched. At that moment, Yona hears a noise behind a wall and finds a secret passage where she sees a squirrel, and when she follows it, the door of the passage closes. When she arrives to find the squirrel, Yona finds herself in a place in the cave, surrounded by candles which are extinguished, and a man appears and tells her that he will guide her to join her friends. The man begins to take her deeper into the cave while telling her that the blue dragon does not live there, but when she realizes the man's intentions, he begins to pull her by the arm. At that, a person with a mask bells and the squirrel stops him and he runs away. This person holds Yona and takes her to the others, so on the way she feels calm. Upon meeting the others, Kija recognizes him as the blue dragon, but he runs away and hides. The blue dragon begins to remember his childhood and how since he was born he had to wear a mask because the people of that town believed that with his gaze he could turn people to stone, although in reality he could only see from far away and paralyze their nerves, although if he did this, he would also be paralyzed. His mother went out of her way, and that is why he was raised by Ao, the former blue dragon, who taught him that his power was a curse. As time went by, he lost his sight, until one day after a battle in which he was already weak, he ended up blind, and soon after he also remembers that he had to use some bells so that Ao would know where he was. At that moment, some soldiers are about to arrive at the village, and even as a child, he decides to confront them and use his power. In doing so, he defeats the entire but falls paralyzed. We return to the present where we see him pensive while Yona thinks he is someone good and warm. The blue dragon starts to feel weak and his eyes itch too much. At that, a voice starts to tell him that he must serve and protect his king. So he realizes that he started to feel that way since he grabbed Yona. Besides, he knows that Keja is a white dragon, but he doesn't explain how he knows that. So he decides to go deeper into the cave. For no one must know his power. Keja and Hak get angry because one of those people tried to take Yona, but Yun calms them down and explains how the blue dragon saved them, so they can't explain why she ran away. At that, Yum explains to Keja that their village may be a particular case, and that the villagers consider the dragon's powers as a curse, but Keja doesn't understand, saying that the dragons have to take care of and protect the king. Yona decides to go back to the labyrinth to find the blue dragon, and since Yun knows the way and Keja senses the other dragon, she asks Hak to stay and watch, which he accepts, but first, she makes him promise to come back and be careful. As they leave, Hak notices that the villagers have been watching them, and when Yona with the boys arrive at the secret passage, Keja senses someone's presence, so he asks Yun and Yona to go ahead. They pay heed, and Keja is seen going to face some villagers who say they cannot let anyone out after entering the maze. On the other hand, Yona and Yun reach the bottom of the labyrinth and meet the blue dragon who threatens them with his sword, but Yona shows no fear, and on the contrary, sees his squirrel and carries it, asking the blue dragon the name of the squirrel. He tells her that his name is Ao, and she comments that she does not like that name. At that, Yona tries to approach him, but as he threatens her with his sword, she only asks him his name, to which he tells her that he has no name while he feels strange in front of Yona as if he had always wanted to meet her. So Yona asks him to support her, but he gets angry and thinks of attacking her, telling her that all those who desire the power of the blue dragon are her enemies. Then Yona explains to him that they are friends and that she needs his power so that she and her friends can live. So if the blue dragon tells them that he is cursed and his power must not be known in the world. Yona refutes this, but seeing that the blue dragon did not change her mind, she decides to accept and leave, but not before telling him that his hands were warm, and if those are the hands of a cursed person, she does not mind being cursed. As he leaves, the blue dragon begins to wonder if he did right, feeling a deep ache in his heart, while Yona feels angry and worried as if she has left someone in a dark cage. Suddenly, they arrive at Keja and see how many villagers want to attack them because they discover the blue dragon, but Keja stops one of them by breaking his mask. And when Yona asks why he thinks the blue dragon is a curse, an earthquake starts, which leaves them locked up. On the other hand, Hak feels the earthquake and runs to look for Yona, although he finds the path covered by rocks, and in his desperation he begins to dig with his hands, starting to... Meanwhile, the villagers who are with the boys start to get scared and unable to escape. They start to say that it is the fault of the blue dragon and its curse, so Keja, to calm Yona and Yun's fear, tells them that he will dig with his dragon claw. At that moment, the villager who broke the mask is having a nervous breakdown and explains to them why the power of the blue dragon is a curse. When he comes out of his cave, everyone is scared. This villager, afraid that the blue dragon will approach him, knocks off his mask, so Yona sees his face and thinks that his eyes are so beautiful that they take your breath away. This villager starts to get scared and says that the blue dragon's gaze will turn him to stone, so everyone starts to say that he has come to devastate them. But Yona tells them that the blue dragon helped her and would not harm anyone. At that, the blue dragon closes his eyes and puts his mask back on, implying that he means no harm. Suddenly, Keja calls out to the blue dragon, telling him that he wants to, otherwise he will join them. So the blue dragon takes an axe, and although it looks like he's going to attack Keja, he ends up digging at Keja's side, telling him that they will get out faster that way. Keja starts digging with the blue dragon. Yona grabs a knife from a villager to help. Even Yun tells the villagers to help if they want to get out. So they all start digging. On the other hand, Hak is digging when villagers show up worried about their relatives on the other side, and Hak makes them tell him the truth so he can rescue them. We go back to the kids and see that Yona ends up due to exhaustion, and although she says she is fine, Keja orders the blue dragon to take her to her room. He obeys and gives her the fur of her mask so that she doesn't feel cold. So Yona begins to cry to see that if he is a good man, and tells him he will continue to help because he wants to leave and free him in a world where he can be who he is without problems. This motivates the blue dragon, and together they go back to digging. When suddenly, Hak breaks the wall with his spear and meets the boys, while the blue dragon reflects, realizing that Yona is the person he should follow. As he leaves, he sees that people are still afraid of him, but Yona approaches him and shakes his hand, proposing again to travel together, and also tells him that with her, he will never have to close his eyes, because she knows he is a good man. The blue dragon hesitates at first, but ends up trusting her, and gives her his hand, starting to cry. So they set off, and Yona thanks the hospitality of the villagers, who stare at her with an angry face, while the blue dragon leaves. Suddenly, his mask drops its bells, and he remembers Ao crying when he went blind, asking him to forgive him for leaving him alone, and he thinks that at that moment Ao would be laughing because he finally made friends. although he realizes that he no longer remembers the latter's face. On the way, Yun asks Kija about the next dragon, but he is so exhausted from digging that he ends up and Hack's teasing he wakes up again. So they decide he should rest, and Yun prepares food. Yun tells Kija that they have the blue dragon who can also sense dragons, and because he is quiet, they don't realize he is still with them. So they ask him, but he doesn't speak and implies that he doesn't know about dragons. Then Kija tells him that he will teach him everything and that he can call him brother. Suddenly, the blue dragon runs away and ends up getting into a lake, from where he pulls out a fish for Kija to eat so he can recover. While they were eating, Yona approached the blue dragon and asked him if he was not cold, because his clothes had gotten wet and he was wrapped in the mane of his mask. Suddenly, they feed him and he likes it so much that he thinks of the princess calling her by her name Yona, which surprises everyone, and she tells him that she wants to call him by a name and that he should choose what he wants to be called. That night, Yona talks to Yun and tells him that the blue dragon told her that she could choose the name and she doesn't know what to call him. So Yun tells her to call him Silence since he doesn't talk much and has only opened up to her. Moreover, Yun asks her if he can also call her Yona and not Princess, and she thinks he is someone cute, blushing him. After that, Yona goes out to a lake and feels the presence of Hack. So he tells her that he will follow her to take care of her always. He wants to call her Yona, and she asks him to call her Princess, and that she never forgets her father and daughter, the king and the princess. Hack kneels and tells her that when they were trapped among the rocks, he asked the king not to take her away, which makes her cry, so he ends up telling her that he never forgets that she is the princess. We move on to see the blue dragon, who is collecting the ingredients he saw Yun using when he notices the moon and starts looking at it. At that, Yona arrives, who is talking to Hack about how to name the blue dragon, and as the latter told him to name it Night, he gives him an idea of what to call it. So Yona approaches the blue dragon and tells him that she will name him Shina, which means moonlight, because he saved her from the depths like that light. He accepts the name and runs through the meadow happy. That night, while everyone is asleep, Shin-a comes to Ale and tells him that Yona gave him his first name, and he will treasure it forever. The next day, Yona wakes up and sees Kija, but Kija wakes up and tells her that he feels the green dragon. Yun tells them that according to Kija, the green dragon is near the area, although if they follow the path, they will reach the castle. So they decide to stay near the mountains and look around for the green dragon. As they advance, they realize that the power of Shia is very useful, since they should not search in empty places. At that, they arrive in an abandoned village, and Yun explains that in that village the king no longer arrives and that his men must have been taken to the kingdom as soldiers, so those who were left were just sick people who ended up. At that moment, they see a man on the ground coughing and Yona wants to help him. But Yun stops her and approaches to help. In the end, Yona helps him and the man tells them about the new king and how he hopes he will be a better king. Since the previous one, Yona's father, was a bad king who abandoned them and left them in misery, he also tells them that this king, by not wanting conflicts, caused the clans to divide, and in the end, they all forgot that people. This saddens Yona, who, after attending to the man, separates from the group and asks them not to follow her, so Shia sends her squirrel to accompany her. Meanwhile, Yun tells them that he couldn't say anything because he thought the same about the king, so Kija tells him that unfortunately, the king will go down in history as a foolish king. Hearing this, Hack tells them that it is foolish to always want to keep the peace, but is not foolish to live by that ideal. The king was not a coward, and he hid his wounds, so he will always remember him. But that Yona went from being a princess with everything to having nothing but herself and the pride that her father was a good king. Suddenly, we see that the princess is crying and is consoling herself with Ao. At nightfall, Yona wakes up and starts practicing with the arrows until she remembers her father's words telling her not to use words and bursts into tears, falling to the ground. The next day, we see Suwon with his allies arrive in Chishan, the capital of a land clan. Inside the capital, we see that Chol Rang, the servant of Li Jun-ti, general of the Earth clan, goes to wake him up and tells him that he must change into other clothes when he tells him that he used to fight. But since it is forbidden, nothing can be done. At that, another servant arrives and tells him that the king has arrived. So they go to meet him, and when they see him, he is accompanied by Hang Judo, the general of heaven. Chol Rang thinks they have a secret mission for Li, but Suwon only asks for some tea. While they are drinking tea, the king is very carefree, which makes Li think he looks like the old king. After they finish, they start walking around the castle, and suddenly old Hee-di appears, telling Li that the Yudo mine had collapsed and the people inside have been injured. So Li starts talking to the old man, while Chol takes the opportunity to ask the king why he was there, to which Suwon tells him that he was just out for a walk. Chol complains about all the problems in the kingdom, and that it's not time for a vacation when Li listens to him and corrects him, but takes the opportunity to ask him about his opinion of the old king. He also tells him that if he continues with the attitude of the former king, carefree and avoiding conflicts, which caused the kingdom to decline, he would start a rebellion, since when he was crowned, he said he would bring the kingdom to the glory of 2 generations ago. This is heard by Suwon, who tells him that he did not lie, but continues to show unconcern. So they continue the walk until they reach a mine rock, which Suwon keeps admiring. So Lee tells them that he has no time to waste and goes back to his room, leaving them with Chul. Chul apologizes and tells them that Lee is because he feels his place is on the battlefield, and with the ban he feels lost. This causes Suwon to have an idea, and then we see Chul run to wake up his master, to tell him that the king is planning a Lee excitedly goes to the king to ask him who they will fight and plans everything about it, but Suwon stops him and tells him that he will make a festival to symbolize a fake to see him fight. This angers Lee and Hang, who start to complain to Suwon that this is no time for games, but he tells them that the festival will be in a week, which makes Lee think that Suwon is worse than the previous king. The day of the festival arrives, and Lee tells Suwon that the clothes they have are too colorful for a drill, and that they shouldn't even carry so much jewelry, but Suwon tells him that it's a festival and the clothes are just right. Suddenly, Lee's wife Yunho, who made those clothes, enters and tells Lee that she and the king are tea friends, which leaves Lee confused. At that, he sees outside his tent is people laughing and clapping along with the music of the festival and realizes that they have forgotten the with the other nations and that this is no time for such things. The king begins to explain the rules of the battle, where they have to break the plates on the soldiers' heads, and there are two sides, each with commoners, nobles, and a king, where the kings will be Lee and Suwon. Before fighting, Lee thinks Suwon is a rabbit, comparing him to Hak, whom he considers a tiger, but Hang, who was noble in that game, gets angry and tells him not to trust what he thinks is a rabbit. At that, the fight begins, and at first it seems that Suwon directly challenges Lee, who accepts the challenge, but when they go to attack, Suwon runs away and flees, although that way the commoners from Suwon's side go ahead and start fighting. At one point, Lee ends up confronting Hang, and although they are quite close, the latter tells him that Lee has the defect of only focusing on one thing and not on everything around him. So he sees that the wind is lifting the earth from the field, and suddenly his allies end up attacking one of his own. This takes advantage of Suwon, who goes to defeat Lee's other allies, but Lee realizes this and runs to stop Suwon. Although he notices that Suwon sees him out of the corner of his eye, and in a maneuver, Suwon takes his wooden sword from one of Lee's allies, throwing it through the air and falling right in front of Lee with such force that it became embedded in the floor. Although Suwon apologizes and pretends it was an accident, Lee realizes that he's not a rabbit. Suwon takes the opportunity to free his prisoners, and suddenly another blizzard raises the ground of the battlefield, making it impossible to see the sides. At that moment, Lee dodges the attacks of two commoners, who are from his clan, and then explain to him that they follow Suwon's orders because he knows where to move. Then Lee realizes that Suwon has a good strategy when suddenly his last soldier is defeated and he is left alone. So the king tells him to give him a second chance and release his soldiers to continue fighting. But Lee refuses, saying that in a battle, the unlived do not revive and that he will fight to the end. So they start to confront each other, and Lee realizes that Suwon is not a rabbit because he has the look of a hawk. At that, when it seems that Suwon can defeat Lee, Lee stumbles, and Lee, in an oversight, ends up breaking the king's plate, beating the king. Although the battle does not end there, Chul, who was the entertainer, tells us that the battle continued until they were able to break Lee's plate, but in that time he had defeated so many soldiers that they ended up winning the game. The next day, we see the king with Lee and Hang having tea, and Lee complains to him about the reason for his visit, since for him, it was a waste of time. At that, Lee's wife appears, telling him that the merchants from K's empire want to buy his tea, and suddenly the old man Hidi arrives and tells them that they are also selling the jewelry stones that they used in the battle. The king overhears them and tells Hang that it's time to leave, while Lee congratulates his wife for doing the business without him knowing. Although she tells him that everything was done by the king, she only did what he ordered her to do, so Lee realizes what the king had planned. We move on to see Suwon, who talks to Hang and tells him that although Lee hadn't noticed the potential of his clan, it's good to have him on their side, because his strength and the strength of his people will help them in the face of any. In Lee's city, he's happy, thinking that now his clan can be rich, and he thinks of trusting this king, since he has proven to have what it takes for the job, which he wants to reaffirm with his visit to the kingdom. And for days, Yona and her allies have been traveling until they arrived at the port city of Owa of the Earth Clan. So Yona and the boys are surprised, since it's the first time they see the sea, but Hak tells them that he did not think he would return to that city. Kaija tells them that he feels that the green dragon is moving all over the place and looks tired, so Yun tells them that they should go inside to buy food. But as everyone is very obvious, Hak offers to go in alone. Once inside, Hak sees some Owa officers who begin to meet a woman in his store, so he decides to attack them. But just when he does, another boy joins him, and together they end up defeating those officers. And when more begin to appear, they decide to leave with the lady. Suddenly, the boy senses something and tells Hak that he must leave, disappearing in an instant. At that moment, we see him jumping from house to house through the roofs and arriving at a ship in the sea, where Captain Jigan is, who calls the boy Jaha, and he tells her that the blue and white dragons are near. Night falls and Hak returns, but without buying anything, so Yun tells him that they should go to the city the next morning, and Hak thinks that he shouldn't tell them about their fight in the city. At that, we see the dragons looking at the ocean and talking, saying that they feel the green dragon is in the sea. The next morning, they are all on their way to the city, but Hak tells them that he will go another way to see about buying, although he doesn't want them to be discovered, since the officers have already seen his face. At that, they find a pirate ship, and the dragons feel the green dragon there, although suddenly they don't feel it anymore. Meanwhile, Hak is looking at an armory outside when Jaha appears and tells him to help him because they are looking for them. Then they end up in a place with ladies and start talking about the people of the town, and Jaha tells him that the town is ruled by Yang Kum-ji, who has the people. So Hak discovers that Jaha talks a lot about freedom and ends up telling him that he is a bodyguard, but of his own free will. When suddenly, Yun appears with Yona, and Hak leaves the place embarrassed, explaining that it was not what it seemed and that he was accompanying Jaha, who had disappeared. At that, we see Jaha up on a roof, thinking that he escaped with just enough since the white dragon was very close. He also wonders who was the strong presence he felt when he saw Yona and thinks of his freedom and that he doesn't care about his fate. He will run away from this one and scare King Hiryu away if he shows up. Kejai and Yun start to scold Hak, but Yona calms them down by telling them that Hak has the right to have fun, but he tries to deny everything. Suddenly, he hides them in a corner, seeing the officer passing by, and tells them that it is best to leave the city as soon as possible. Suddenly, they meet the girl he saved the day before, and as everyone is curious to know who she is, together they enter her store where he explains his fight and tells them about the boy he met. She also tells them that the officials work for Yang Kum-ji and that they can do whatever they want. So Yun asks her if the pirates do not cause problems, but she tells him that the pirates only attack the governor's ships and never the inhabitants of the city. At that, we see how a ship of that governor is about to arrive at the port carrying to be sold at a very high price when Jahan intercepts them and deceives them, making them believe that there are no pirates. Suddenly, the pirate ship appears and they begin to fight against them, finding the and with Jaigam's orders, they burn the whole ship and those officers are put in boats adrift. Back on their ship, the pirates ask Jaigam why she won't let them unsurvive the officers, and she tells them that she doesn't want her boys to have that burden, which makes them love her more. After that, Jahan feels a tingling in his leg and Jaigan tells him that it must be because the dragons are coming for him, but he refuses. Suddenly, she tells him that they must be stronger because they will soon be facing off against that ruler and she doesn't want her boys to go on a rampage. So Jahan thinks of Hak and tells Jaigan that he met a super strong guy, so she orders him to recruit him and he excitedly agrees to go the next day to do so, since he is a worthy companion in their fight. Meanwhile, we see the boys on the seashore, ready to spend the night while Hak gets chills. The next day, Jahan tells one of his fellow pirates that he is going to recruit someone and suddenly, Hak feels shivers, which Yona notices, but Yona tells him that nothing is wrong. As the boys search the city for the green dragon, they left Shaya alone. At that moment, they see some officers inside a store who are some people. Yona wants to intervene but is stopped by Kija, who tells her that he will take care of it, but before he is stopped by Hak, telling him that he draws attention with his claw and he will take care of it, stopped by Yun, who tells them that everyone draws attention and the best thing is for them to go on their way. They leave and on the way, Hak tells them he must go somewhere else, leaving them confused until they realize there are wanted posters with poorly drawn pictures of him. At that, we see that Jahan is making fun of those drawings when Hak appears and tells him that there are drawings of him too. He burns the drawings and remembers that he was about to recruit Hak, but starts telling him that he wants him, and this makes people start whispering. Hak hears him and punches him, making him bleed from his nose, but Jahan stands up and smiles, so Hak starts running, trying to run away. At that, when Jahan goes to jump to catch up with him, he sees Yona with Yun and the white dragon and runs away. So Hak tells them that he was running away from and they continue on their way. Jahan, on a rooftop, realizes it and thinks he will continue to persevere to recruit him, but he trips off the roof and falls in front of the white dragon. On the other hand, Hak is showing Yona and Yun the wanted drawings and Yona tells him that she wants to meet the guy who helped him save the girl, but Hak refuses. Suddenly, they hear crying and realize they are coming from the store from earlier, so they enter and find an injured family crying while holding a little boy. The father tells them that the boy rebelled against the officers and they gummed him up. Yun takes the boy's pulse and confirms that he is devastated, which makes Yona cry helplessly and tells them how they can save that village, but Yun tells her that they can't do anything for the time being. So Yona questions herself since she is the daughter of the former king and wonders if she really can't do anything. At that, we see Jahan telling Kija how he escaped from his prison in the Green Dragon City and how he has been running away whenever he felt a dragon nearby, but unfortunately, he got stuck in a clay pot and can't escape. So Kija takes advantage of this and loads the pot to go running to the princess, taking the green dragon. Until the green dragon stops him, telling him that they attract too much attention, and the white dragon tells him that they must serve their master. So Jahan tells him that he has not decided, that he has only been instilled, and with a blow, he breaks the vase and escapes. While jumping, he comes to see Hak and introduces himself with his name. He also tells him that he's a pirate and that his captain wants to see him, but Hak refuses. At that moment, Yona arrives and Jahan feels his boil to the point that he ends up kneeling while he hears the same voice that Shaya heard. At that, Yona touches his forehead and realizes that it is boiling, but he tells her that he is fine. Although Yona deduces that it is the green dragon. Although Jahan denies it, Kija appears with Yun, and they tell Yona that it is, so Hak stops him. Jahan tells her that he does not wish to meet her, nor follow the orders of any master, but she tells him that she is not the master of any dragon and has only asked as a favor to borrow his power, although Jahan rejects her, so Yona accepts it. But Jahan tells them that his captain is recruiting Hak, and Yona takes advantage of this to ask him to introduce her to his captain, as she is still angry and helpless over the loss of that child. He accepts and agrees to introduce her the next day as long as he brings Hak. That night, Hak tells Yona why she gave up so easily when he demanded her to help her, and she blushes and tells him that he is someone else. The next morning, they all arrive at the captain's ship, and she tests Hak along with the white and blue dragon to see if they are trustworthy and have the necessary strength, which they must defeat all his men, and in an instant, they three end up defeating everyone. So Jai-Gan accepts them. At that, she asks Yun and Yona what they can do. Yun tells her that although she doesn't fight, she can cook. So treat wounded and make. But Yona doesn't know what to answer, and the captain rejects her. So Kija thinks to tell the captain that without Yona, they don't fight, but she shuts him up and tells the captain that she wants to fight. So the captain sees the intensity of her gaze and tells her that she will accept her if she passes a test that puts her own life at risk. It all starts when Jahan shows Yona the way, and Yona is surprised to see the place. The captain of the crew tells Yona that to enter her ship, she must take on the challenge of bringing Senjuso, which is on a cliff. Yona accepts, but the captain adds that she must do it alone. However, Yona tells her that there is no problem and embarks on the mission. Jahan shows her the way to the tree, but Yona is afraid to go. She still walks to a cliff where the path is too narrow, but she doesn't care because she knows it will help her to belong to the crew, while Jahan has an urge to help her, although he knows he can't. Yona reaches the tree and manages to catch the plant, and this excites her, while the captain hesitantly looks at her crew and says that Yona must do it quickly because she may be in terrible danger. At the cliff site, Yona is leaving the place when Jahan sees her, and suddenly a wave manages to knock her down to the cliff. Jahan gets worried and runs to help her because she is holding onto a branch, but she refuses to be helped. But he has no choice and manages to get her out of there. While everyone is waiting in place for her to come out and question the captain's commands, to which she replies that any woman can do it and not to underestimate her, Yona is seen in the distance coming with Jahan. When they reach the captain, Yona gives her the plant but tells her that she did it with help, but that she will do it again alone. The captain laughs and says that she already proved her bravery and loyalty and that she already belongs to the group. Everyone is happy about that. Later, Yona is healed by Hak, who realizes he has feelings for her, but she blushes and leaves. At night, the captain tells Yona that everyone is her home and she is saddened because she knows that everyone will be left without a home if something happens to the ship. So Jahan tells her that he will not leave with her until he grows up a little more. In the distance, one of the crew members sees many ships approaching, so the captain tells everyone to get ready, while she devises a plan to make a deal with the Kai Empire, which is an ally of Kimju. The captain says that all this is because the Kai Empire humans. One of the companions says that they are between women and children. This affirms the captain and says that is the objective to attack the so that in this way they can win. Some say that it is impossible because they are sheltered, but the captain says that it will be the risk that they will have to run. In the daily routine of the ship's crew, Yona finds nothing to do since everything is already being done, and although she wants to help, Kida tells her that she will sit down and he will do it until Jahan offers to take her to explore the city, to which Yona agrees and they leave. Once in the city, both see how they are afraid of a person who is in the carriage and everyone hides. Suddenly, they see a girl dressed as a man who hides in an alley, and when they discover him, she tells them that she and her friend went to where they were going to give them work. But with a deception, they took her friend and she escaped, and now they are hiding. On the ship, Jahan tells the captain that the human will meet and that they can attack him there, and that same night they will send to pick up people who work. Yona wants to help by being and then giving the alert already inside the ship and help to see which ship will take the women. Everyone opposes. Yona convinces them and the captain accepts, but she will be accompanied by Yun, who prepares the fireworks so that Yona does not worry, while the others devise a plan. Yona in the evening thanks the captain for accepting her opinion, and she tells her that it is only for the plan and that it is to save the women, but she is worried because since she entered the ship, she has become one of her daughters. This makes Yona cry, who does not remember her mother. Hak finds her walking and tells her that he doesn't know how to convince her to stay, but she just tells him that it's because in her kingdom she saw so many problems and couldn't do anything. It's because she should be more responsible with others. The next day, Yona and Yun are in dresses, and although Kijo wants to join them in a woman's dress, she can't. Yun says that she has everything ready and that Hak has nothing to worry about. They go to the place where they were and are admitted. Inside the room, they fall and are already inside the while the others wait for their signal on the ship. Once inside the place, the cheater talks to his boss and tells him that he has a red-haired woman. They take Yona and Yun to a room where they leave all the girls. Yona gets a bump on her foot but is still strong. Suddenly, Yan Humjae enters and grabs Yona by the hair, saying that he could stay with her. Yun, for his part, tells him that she may serve him more since she was dressed as a woman, but he is hit by Kumji and he manages to recognize Yona as the princess, but then says that it is not possible since Yona would not dare, and she is also dead since her servant killed her. Once they are alone with the other girls, one of them gets desperate and starts to scream, while another one tells her that it is useless and that they will not get out of there. Suddenly, Yona tells her that she must have hope to be able to get out and that they will not lose her yet. At night, they take all the girls out of the place to take them to the ship, while the crew members who plan to rescue them are waiting for the signal. On the ship, the boys fight over who cares more about Yona. However, she doesn't want to accept that they stayed awake out of concern. This the captain sees and laughs. Suddenly, Shaya sees in the distance that the boats are moving and starts to get ready. On the boat where the girls are, Yun and Yona manage to take down the guard with a dart and a punch, and with the other girls already untied, they start planning how to escape from there, and one girl joins the two of them to take down the guards. In that, all the crew members begin to attack the ship with a blow, and another manages to knock them down, but is careful not to kill them. While on his side, the girls manage to knock down several guards, but one of them gives many blows to Yun because they realize that he is a man. This stops them, saying that there are too many. Manages to escape to the deck, and Yona with a bow and manages to dodge the guards. Yun then tells her to grab the gunpowder from her sash and light the fires. With a quick movement, Yona manages to light them, and the pirates manage to see her signal. The boys see the signal just as Yona is captured, and Shaya shows Hak where they are. But since they are far away, Hak becomes concerned. The officers realize that Yona threw a signal and they want to destroy her. But when they are about to do so, Jaha falls from the sky and starts attacking them, saying that he will not spare the lives of those who hurt Yona. An injured Yun sees this and is surprised by the strength of the green dragon. When he wakes up, he sees Yona crying for him, but Yona tells him that she is fine and congratulates her for setting off the fireworks. She calls him a genius, and he thinks he is not strong and not a genius either, but tells her that they made it. At that moment, mercenaries appear on another ship, and with a ladder they manage to get to the ship where they are attacking Jaha. Suddenly they go for Yona, and when they are about to attack her, Shaya appears and defeats them. So Yum tells them that he thought Hak would arrive, but Jaha explains that he arrived because of his jumps in Shaya, because of his night vision. We move on to see the moment when the boys see the signal and how Hak sends Jaha and Shaya to stay to fight on his ship together with Kija, but both are exhausted until Jigan helps them with some officers and tells them that they must finish to go for Yona and make out with her. This encourages Hak, who together with Kija, to resume the fight because the captain tells them that as long as Kumji lives, the war will continue. The fight continues, and some pirates tell Jaha that if they see 2 more ships, they will win, and together they go to another ship to continue fighting. Meanwhile, Yum is hiding with Yona and realizes that Kumji must be with his merchandise, so he notices that on the ship where Jaha is, there are more mercenaries. So that's where Kumji must be. At that, we see Kumji together with his officers, who inform him that they are being defeated and tell him that he should escape, but he refuses, telling them that 30 years of work will not leave him for an old pirate captain and a girl, referring to Yona. Suddenly, he grabs his bow, aims at one of the officers, but the officer dodges and hits a false wall right through a map where a pirate was hiding. The pirate gets scared and runs away. Upstairs, Yun tells Jaha where Kumji is, and Kumji makes his way there, while Yona is very angry, watching the battle. When Jaha arrives at Kumji's hiding place, thanks to the pirate who ran off telling her where he was, she finds that Kumji has already left. At that, we see Kumji on a boat with his captain escaping, while the captain tells him that as long as he lives, the war will continue and he can go to his palace and buy many more mercenaries because to be powerful, he must have foul play. But in the distance, Shaya sees him and tells Jaha where he is, so Jaha jumps to attack him. Kumji sees him thanks to his captain and shoots an arrow at him while taking cover with his captain. Jahan also throws his blades at him, but they miss, although Kumji's hits him in the shoulder, making him fall. At that moment, when Kumji is about to unburden Jaha, he feels that he is being aimed, and in the distance, he sees Yona with her bow, so he realizes that it is the princess. She shoots him, and the arrow hits him in his heart, unburdening him. The captured girls end up tying up the officers, and the fight ends just at dawn. That morning, all the pirates are tired from fighting all night, and Jigan tells them that they will go to sleep as pirates, but wake up as fishermen. Upon reaching the shore, the captured girls are reunited with their families and thank the pirates, even Yuri. the girl who helped Yona, thanks her, calling her Rina, and she almost tells her name but stops. The people want to thank them, so Jigan tells them that as payment, they should give them enough alcohol for the whole town, thus starting a party, although Yun refuses and wants to heal everyone's wounds. After the party is over, Yona is seen walking around the city, which is now quiet, when she decides to go back to the guys but ends up bumping into Suwon, who is walking around, and they are both surprised to see each other. Suwon, surprised, thinks it's an illusion and tells her that January died in the northern mountains, but she just stares at him, remembering when he took care of her when she was a child. At that, Suwon asks her if she is Yona, but she doesn't answer. Suwon asks her about Hak, and although she doesn't answer, he tells her that she must be fine because he is still taking care of her. At that, Hang arrives with his men scolding Suwon for leaving alone, and he hides Yona under his cloak. Hang notices that he has a woman in hiding and explains to him that the pirates finished off Kumji, whom Suwon was looking for, because he had heard about his business with human. So he tells them that they should thank the pirates, and once they return to the castle, he will think about Kumji's replacement. Meanwhile, Yona sees under the cloak Suwon's sword and grabs it, but he stops her hand. When Hang and his men leave, Suwon asks him if he wants to. Although he answers himself, telling him that it is obvious, but he cannot yet, he must first finish what he is doing. He pulls her out from under his cloak and says goodbye, leaving her crying. Suddenly, Hak hears Yona crying and runs to see her, realizing that she is with someone there. On the outskirts of the city, Suwon meets Hang and his men and tells them that he is done visiting, and they will now return to the castle. The next day, Yona wakes up Kija, who had fallen asleep from so much, and he asks her if she is all right. She answers yes, although she stumbles and is held by Hak, reaffirming that she is fine. Then Yona tries to help Yun, who is cooking for everyone, but she gets, although she keeps saying she is fine. While they are eating, she gets her clothes dirty and the pirates tell her so she starts to take her clothes in front of them and is stopped by Hak, who puts her tunic on and tells her to change into the captain's quarters. Yona sees it and leaves in shame. So Hak thinks that what happened is because he has been condescending, and Jihad notices the latter's. When Yona arrives at the ship, Shaya sees her and asks Ao to accompany her. Already in the bedroom, she finishes changing and sees the hairpin, remembering when Suwon gave it to her and what happened up to that moment. As night falls, we see Yona watching the sunset and thinking about everything that happened when Hak appears and tells her that as her bodyguard, he will never leave her and that she can call him whenever she needs him. So she tells him that she will leave there and asks him to accompany her. He accepts, and at that moment, Yun appears with Shaya and Kaija, who had heard, and Yun complains to her saying that she should ask everyone to go. So she tells them that she will leave the next day and asks them to accompany her, accepting. That night, the party in town continues, and while everyone is partying, Jaha is playing his instrument when he is interrupted by Yona, to whom he lends his instrument to play it. But when he does it badly, he makes fun, and she tells him that she knows how to play the harp and dance a little. She thanks him even though she doesn't want to go with them, and he stops her, telling her that he likes to spend the holidays with a beautiful girl. Then we see him with the pirates, and while he was playing, he put them to sleep. But they did not want to go to sleep, because when they woke up, they would be fishermen and not pirates, but Jahan put them to sleep with his music, telling them that he loves them. Then he enters the captain's bedroom, where she says goodbye to him, because she knows he will leave with Yona, and he tells her to at least tell him that he has a home to return to. So she tells him that, for that, he must learn to court her better, remembering the words that the captain said to him when she met him. The next day, Yona with the boys are saying goodbye to the pirates and the people in the city, but she tries to see Jaha, whom she cannot find, so Jigan tells her that she will see him whenever she returns to the city, and that if she needs a ship, she can count on her. Also, when saying goodbye, Jigan gives her a bag with senjutsu and tells her not to get sick. Yona leaves but stops and comes back crying to hug the captain, making all the pirates cry. When they leave, Yuri starts telling the villagers how Yona defeated Kumji with an arrow. On the way, we see Yona crying, and this makes Yun and Kija cry too. She also tells them that she is sad because she didn't say goodbye to Jaha, but Kija tells them that she thought he had joined them. So at one blow, Shaya knocks down a tree and Jaha falls from it. The green dragon tells Yona that he is still doing her will and therefore wants to travel with her. Everyone claims him, telling them that he must recognize the whole group, and Jaha apologizes, introducing himself as the green dragon, who had the right leg of a dragon, thus joining the team. Jaha brings them a fawn so they can eat, and Yona admires it for its legs, telling him that this will make it easier to find the yellow dragon, the last of the dragons. At that, he tells her that he will find that dragon, and Kija starts arguing with him about who will find it first. Meanwhile, Yun decides to cook the fawn and orders Hak to start the fire. But in the distance, a hungry person is seen watching them prepare their food. As Yona finishes skinning the fawn, telling Yun that although it is difficult for her, it is something she must do, she starts praying to give thanks, and next to her, this boy appears, praying too, although we are grunting and drooling from hunger. Yona accepts him and invites him to eat with them. So while they eat, Hak asks them who he is, but the dragons talk among themselves and conclude that the boy is the yellow dragon. They are all surprised, but this boy recognizes them as dragons and tells them that his name is Zeno, a traveler, so Yona tells him that she doesn't know whether to ask him to join them, but he interrupts her and agrees to join them for the food. At that, Kouka tells Zeno that he wants to see his power, and Zeno tells him that he has a very strong body, although Hak hits him, hurting him. So Yun doubts that he can be tough, since Hak looks tougher than him. This causes Hak to mock and say that he is the yellow dragon, to which Kouka tells him that he would be the dark dragon before being a holy dragon. This pleases Hak, while Kouka gets excited to see the 4 dragons together and starts crying. That night, while Yona is collecting firewood, Zeno appears to help her. Although the firewood is heavy for him, he makes an effort, and she formally introduces herself to him, telling him that if she believes he is a dragon because she sees him differently, like a ray of sunshine, and that makes her happy. He rejoices and then excitedly runs through the meadow. Meanwhile, in a tent, Yun begins to narrate the legend of the dragons, saying that the awakening of the red dragon is coming. The next day, they go back with Akatsuki, and upon entering Yun's hut, they find everything broken and the wounded man. So Yun worries, believing that he was tied up, but Yun tells them that he tripped and fell trying to see what to eat. Now healed, Akatsuki notices that the group is complete, and Yun talks to him about the king's sword and shield, but Akatsuki tells him that those will appear when needed. Suddenly, Zeno interrupts them to ask what Yona wants to do with the dragons, because if she wants to take the castle and overthrow the king, with the power of the dragons she could do it, but she remains silent without knowing what to answer. That afternoon, while the boys are talking about what Zeno said, they ask Hak what the king is like, but he tells them he doesn't know and leaves, so Jaha tells them that Hak is like that, because the king must have been a great friend of his. At that, we see that Yona is at the riverside, thinking about what Zeno said. When Akatsuki appears and they start talking about what she went through, she tells him that she wants to help all the people in the kingdom, and before going back to the castle, she must do something, remembering Suwon's words. In addition, she tells him that she saw the king and couldn't unsee him, but Akatsuki tells her that he understands her. Since when there are very strong feelings, sometimes they come back and don't let the person act, making the person cry. That night, we see how Yona is practicing with the sword, and Hak appears, who stops her and tells her that since it is raining, they should take shelter. Upon entering a cave, she tells him that she is practicing with a sword so as not to use Hak as a shield and be able to protect him. She also tells him that she talked about it with Jaha, who told her that Hak did not let her use swords because he wanted to protect her so much as if she were his partner, but before finishing, she was interrupted by the boys. Hak is ashamed, and she tells him that she knows it was a lie. So Hak tells her that it is the opposite. He does not want to hide her from the world, but to show the world who she is. This makes her cry, and she apologizes to Hak, telling him that when the rain stops, you'll return to the sword. However, when the rain ends, he sees her asleep and kisses her forehead. We go to the castle where Mundok is with a new general of the Wind Clan, and they meet the king, to whom he tells him that they must return to his village because he still has to teach his general many things. As they were leaving, Mundok congratulated the king on his work in the city of the Earth Clan, asking him what he would do next, but he told him to see for himself, and that he hadn't done anything yet. Suddenly, we see the king's on the cliff at the beginning of the series, and Yona asking the dragons to lend her their strength. The whole group accepts, and she begins to move forward with them. After much walking, the boys arrive at a valley with orange leaves, which they admire, and Shaya sees an inn in the distance. When they arrive, they notice that it is very cheap and they stay there. They also see the hot springs, and they all decide to take a shower in them. But Jaha notices that Kouka is apart and has not entered the waters, so he begins to bother him until he sees the scars on his back and lets him go. While the latter was bathing with the others in the hot springs, he thinks that this scar could have been made by the first one of him, since it is shaped like a dragon's claw, and that if so, it makes sense to be ashamed. Then Jaha meets Kouka on the road and sees him tormenting himself. So she tries to cheer him up, but he still feels the same and refuses to go to hot springs to take a shower. At that, Yona arrives and tells him that if he feels bad, he should go to rest, touching his forehead and then leaving. So Kouka tells Jaha to take a shower in a nearby well. But while he starts to take a shower, Hak appears and Jaha starts to cover Kouka so that no one can see his scar, reaching the point of starting a fight with Hak. But just before they fight, we see Kouka finishes taking a shower and a spider appears in front of him. Suddenly, Kouka approaches the boys, but with his torso up, and tells them that he wants to fight too. Jaha is frightened to see him like this and tries to cover it, thinking that Kouka is ashamed of his scar, but he starts to scream when he feels the spider on his back, saying that this spider had been bothering him all day and asking to be removed, showing his back with his scar. After that, Kouka and Jaha are in the hot springs, and Jaha tells Kouka that he is a coward and that he must have made his scar himself in some clumsiness, but Kouka tells him that it was made by his father, the first one when he was born, telling him that his father wanted to serve his master so much so that when he was born he attacked him, and that is why they were separated. so he does not feel ashamed of his scar, since it was the only time his father kissed him. Jaha apologizes, even though the first time she met him, she called him a puppet, and he tells her not to worry. He does what he wants, even if he can't follow through. This causes Jaha's admiration, who realizes that Keja is not a spoiled child. That night, while they were sleeping, Keja dreams of his childhood, just on the day his father was going to and how he went into the place where his father was and saw that his hand already belonged to a man. Moreover, in his father's delirium, he believes that he is the grandmother of the city and asks him to be able to teach his son now that he is just another man. This causes Keija to cry and jump on his father, who notices and calls him by name before passing. When he is being buried, the grandmother tells him to forgive his father, and he replies that there is nothing to forgive. At that point, we see some images of Jaha's childhood, and we see him sitting in the passageway, remembering it, when Hak appears with a bottle of sake, and they start drinking. The next day, Jaha arrives at the hot springs and sees Keija bathing, so he joins him and then the other dragons. That way, Keija tells them that they are his brothers and they can count on him. Suddenly, Yun and Hak appear to join them, and Yona calls Yun from the other side of the hot springs, asking him to pass him some soap because he is out of soap. At that, everyone lifts their soap, and then we see that Yona has 6 soaps on her side, even though she only needs 1. They all went on with their journey and got a lot of alcohol thanks to Hak winning a drinking contest. So they bet on who can stand more alcohol. Although in the middle of it all, Keija wants to fight with Jaha to see who is stronger, the claw or the leg. At that, Jaha puts him to sleep with a lot of alcohol, and little by little everyone falls asleep, including Yona, who falls asleep before telling Hak how she feels about him. In the end, Jaha comes last, and since he won, he can punish Hak. But first, he puts Zeno to sleep and goes on drinking. While Zeno was sleeping, he recalls what happened years ago, and we learn that he was the first one who fought alongside King Hiryu. And since he had no attack powers, the latter took great care of him, not letting him fight. They founded the kingdom, and one day, while the 4 dragons were arguing, the king arrived to calm them down. Zeno showed them that he had the power to heal himself immediately, which pleased the king, who ended up giving him his necklace, which he still wears on his forehead today. Suddenly, a soldier tells the king that they are trying to invade from the north and the dragons are going to fight, but the king prevents Zeno from going. At that, we see that Zeno is next to the dragons, while they fight, and the blue dragon is paralyzed by his power. So Zeno takes him, and suddenly he is attacked and cut. Although he immediately regenerates, scaring his attacker, who runs away, and he is left scared and dizzy. Many years pass, and the king ages, as do the dragons, but Zeno remains the same. One night, while giving food to the king, he asks him, in tears, why he does not age and what is his true power. But the king did not answer. Soon after his departure, the kingdom began to be attacked by those who were resentful of that kingdom after winning their battles and obtaining peace. So the dragons began to defend them, until one day they captured the blue dragon and the others had to flee. At the end of the blue dragon returned and blindfolded himself, locking himself in the place where the king's body lay. After a while, the 3 dragons decided to leave the kingdom, leaving only Zeno there, telling the people that he heard the voice of the gods through the necklace that the king had given him. When the dragons say goodbye to Zeno, they all embrace and call each other brothers, feeling their connection and promising to meet again in heaven. They also ask Zeno to come and visit them. After 20 years, Zeno stayed in the kingdom as a priest and helped the prince with small conflicts. Although he never really heard the voice of the gods, he learned to fight and went alone to battles and won them. One day he felt how the white dragon was passing away, and although he wanted to wait for him so he could see him, he couldn't, since he was in a battle. In the pain of feeling his brother, the soldiers of the opposing side attacked him many times, and Zeno's wounds scarred like dragon scales. So he realized that he could have the claws of the white dragon and the legs of the green dragon, and thus he defeated an entire, although he felt a lot of pain, because he could never meet his brothers in heaven. Now we see Zeno wandering through the forest alone. Many years have passed, and when the kingdom began to see him badly because he did not age, he decided to retire from there, leaving another as a priest. To this one, he gave the medallion, although later this necklace was returned to him. That one day he felt the white dragon, although he knew that his brother had passed away. So following his call, he arrived at a village where the dragon was worshipped and saw a child with the dragon's power. At that moment, he was attacked by the soldiers of that village, who shot arrows at him, and after fleeing and a lot of walking, he ended up lying in the place where he was at that moment. Suddenly, a person approaches him and takes him away. Then he wakes up in a house, and we see that who took him is a girl named Kaya, who begins to take care of him. Although he is scared at first not to see his medallion, she gives it to him and asks him to eat or he will. Although Zeno tells her that he wants that to happen. One night, he hears her coughing, and when he realizes she is dropping, he picks her up. She tells him that she has a contagious disease and that is why she lives alone, asking him to leave. But Zeno tells her that he does not get sick and carries her and takes care of her. Time passes and he stays to live with her while saving money with the jobs he did. We see how they spend a lot of time together cooking or him giving flowers to her. Until one day, she tiredly tells him that she wishes time would stop, which makes him sad. Time passes, and one day Kouka falls sicker, so she asks Xeno to leave, but he tells her that he will always take care of her and wants to be with her, asking her to get married, and she starts to cry with happiness when she hears him. That night, Xeno asks his dragon to appear and heal Kouka for at least one more day, and in exchange, he doesn't mind being his for eternity, but this dragon never appeared. Time passes, and the day comes when Kouka is away, holding Xeno's hand and thanking him for the time by her side. Years or centuries go by and Xeno remains in the same position until Kaia's body ends up being only bones. He buried it and began to wander the world, sometimes losing control of his mind, but the medallion helped him to calm down. And so years passed until one day he felt that the king was coming back. Then it was raised to wait as long as it takes until it is necessary. One night in the sky, a red light was seen, and suddenly we see that Kouka, being a child, sees it and runs to climb a tree where he finds Xeno. Kouka tells him that he felt that the light was calling him, and Xeno explains to him that it is his sunlight that was already born, but it will depend on him to be the light that the world needs. Kouka asks him who he is, but Xeno doesn't answer and only tells him that he hopes to see him again as he leaves because Kouka's guards are already looking for him. After that, Xeno comes to meet Shaya, to whom he gives a ball and asks him to take care of Ao, his caretaker. When he sees him, he just leaves. Ao asks Shaya who he is, and Shaya, being only a child, replies that he is the Yellow Dragon. In the end, he enters a dungeon where he sees a child, Jaha, and sleeping on the floor. The latter covers him with his cloak and tells him that, although he does not understand it, in his he has the power of a dragon that not everyone can have, and leaves, thinking that when the king needs him, he will be there, since, after all, he is good at waiting. Suddenly, Xeno wakes up because he hears Yona calling him and sees everyone around him. Telling him to get up, he asks them to come closer, and when they do, he hugs them, laughing and telling them that they have grown up a lot since he has remembered him. After that, they are all eating, and Hak asks Yun what he did because he didn't see him in the night. He tells them everything he did and says that if they want, he can do more. So they all congratulate him and name him the winner of the bet of who lasted the longest, being him the one they had to obey. Now we go back to when Hak put Yona to bed in his tent, and she is seen holding him by the little finger, causing him to remember the time when they were in the castle and how one day, while training she comes to him and asks him to sleep. After that, in her bedroom, she tells him that there are ghosts in her room, and although she seems to be suffering from sleep paralysis, she asks Hak, since he is strong, to defeat the ghost as soon as it comes out. Hak accepts and as a joke gets into refuting, but she lies down next to him without saying anything, and this scares him, causing him to quickly get out of there and tell her that he better call Suwon to stay the next day with her. Yona doesn't accept, telling him that she would be too embarrassed and that she wants him to stay with her, not Suwon. So Hak sits on the futon and she asks for his little finger to sleep. He shakes her hand and she grabs that finger, which makes him very uncomfortable. But Yona tells him that the night before she had a dream where she saw herself running away with him on a night, and suddenly she looked up and saw him on the floor, and no matter how much she called him, he did not respond. When he woke up, he could not move and was afraid. So he wants at least her little finger. Hak hears this and shakes her hand, telling her that he will give her everything to rest. This makes her blush and she turns away, saying she better not see her anymore and not to see her, confusing him. We come back to reality and see that Yona is still sleeping while holding Hak's pinky, who sees her smiling.